Hello. All right, so about 18 months ago, I told actually my first story here at the Lancaster Story Slam, and it was about living in Korea. Or actually, maybe that was my second story, but whatever. Living in South Korea for a year. So this is not about that. However, this is sort of part two, so it's kind of like a do-over of that story or a continuation. But I actually, what I didn't tell you in that story 18 months ago is that I lived in Korea for a year, and then I came home, had a job for a while, hated it, quit, and then couldn't find a job. So I was in loose contact with my former school that I had taught in Korea, and I don't really understand how this happened. Like, it's kind of a blur, but the headmaster, my former boss in Korea, somehow persuaded me to buy a plane ticket to come to Korea and volunteer to do this sort of curriculum editing, living in Korea, helping the school, all for free. That's what volunteering means. And so I did that, and it was weird because it actually was sort of, in a sense, if you happen to hear that story, not that you have to have heard it to understand this one, but I talked a lot about how Korea was this love-hate relationship for me, and they were, it was like really emotional, and I was lonely, but it was also awesome, and by the end of the year, yada yada, I learned things, and I became a better person. So that was that story. But this story is about how it actually, doing Korea again, and granted it was only 2 months this time, but doing it again was actually just kind of hilariously better because though I had been living in a small village about an hour outside of Seoul in Korea for the year, this time I was actually living in the city in Seoul. I was living with the headmaster, my boss. I was living with his mother-in-law, like an elderly, late 70-year-old woman, and she spoke no English. I had spoken a little bit of Korean like 2 years before, but it kind of just leaves you. And so I arrive, and all I can remember is how to say like how to count to 3, how to say thank you, please, I'm sorry, those sort of useless things when you're ordering a pizza or whatever. But so I'm trying to remember these things, and I'm trying to make a good impression on her because I'd never met her. And so it's hilarious because the first night, Joseph, my boss, he was the one who I was going to be sort of team working with through this curriculum, and so he picks me up at the airport, he takes me to this woman's house, introduces me. I don't know what he told her. They had a long conversation, and then he leaves and doesn't explain anything, and then he comes back like an hour later with like just a bunch of food for me. I love Korean food, and that was no secret when I lived there previously, so I guess he thought, okay, this girl, she's come back to help me. I am like forever indebted to her. I have to just spoil her like crazy. So he bought me like all the things that he remembered that I loved, which was very sweet. But I think it sort of set the tone for this mother-in-law, this woman, that gave her the impression that like I needed lots of food all the time. And so basically for the next 2 months, I'm living in this house, in this apartment, 10th floor, in the middle of Seoul with this woman, can't communicate with her, trying to do a lot of smiling and all those things you do when you're not understanding somebody. And it just was confusing, like a lot of confusion. I never really understood like if she was home or not, because she would always close her bedroom door, and I was like, is she home? I don't know. And so about day 2, so day 1, get this pile of food. I ate like 1/10 of it because it was like enough for 12 men. So day 2 comes along, and Joseph has gone back to his home. I'm sort of doing like this stuff online. I have the freedom to sort of just come and go, and I'm wandering around Seoul. I'm going to cafes and enjoying life as like a sort of freelancer, volunteer, whatever. It's a lot of fun. But this woman, this mother-in-law, she just is like giving me food at inappropriate times. Like I'll get home at like 8 p.m. and I'll have eaten dinner because like I'm American, I don't know. And so I've eaten dinner, and she'll come to the door, like I don't even know she's home, and she'll just appear, and she'll knock on my bedroom door, and again, no English. She just hands me a tray of like 3 oranges, like just like, thank you. So I take them, And then at that time, I think, if I remember, she had said something in like her sort of Google Translate help, something like, "I'm leaving for the market, I'll be home in a year." And I was like, I don't think she means that, but okay. So I politely was like, well, let me try to eat like one of these oranges because like that's whatever. They're like huge. So I eat one. And then like at like 10 p.m. she comes again and knocks on the door and she has like a full pizza for me. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with this pizza. Like this is not, like I don't know what to do. I can't, like in Korean culture, you have to eat the food. Like it's actually like a polite thing if you say kind of how are you is sort of like saying, have you eaten yet? It's like the same thing. So this is like really awkward for me because I don't know how to explain to her like I've eaten. And that, but you would think, okay, Laura, just stop eating. Stop eating, you know what I mean? Stop eating, like she'll just feed me. But she wouldn't feed me when I was actually hungry. I would try that and she would not feed me. So anyway, it's hilarious and it was just like a funny thing. But it wasn't just her, it was like all of the elderly people in Korea were doing and saying funny things to me. Like I went into this bakery and this old man that owned it was like just looks at me with shock. I don't know why I was so shocking to him, but he looks at me, he's astonished, and he, as I'm like buying a piece of bread or something, he puts in a grilled cheese sandwich into a bag and he's like, "For the road." I'm like, thank you. And you know, I just have like all of these like just bizarre, like I have this woman, like I'm like walking past this parking lot and there's this elderly woman just like hula hooping in the corner. And like, so this is my life for 2 months. But it wasn't just elderly actually, it was all people in Korea just like would say really funny things to me. Like this little 12-year-old boy comes running up to me and he's like, "You are beautiful, what's up?" And so anyway, this is my hilarious story of how sort of you can take what was a sort of bittersweet love-hate thing that was Korea and live there for a year, and then you can just go back and it can be totally different and very funny. And my point is that you guys should not just give up if something wasn't wonderful and perfect the first time. Try it again.